During World War II, the Allied forces needed an answer to compete against the German powerhouse tanks, the Tiger and Panther series. That answer was the M-26 Pershing. Let's take a look at this tank in the garage. I'm joined by Nicholas from Wargaming, aka the Chieftan, and he's going to help me break down the M-26.
What it really was a Tiger killer. It was designed primarily around the 90mm cannon. The 90mm gun was an anti-aircraft gun. If you aim the gun sideways, it's probably going to do something nasty against tanks. You have much thicker frontal armor. The suspension system has changed from the bogie suspension and has gone to an individually sprung torsion bar system, which gives a much better and more capable ride. Downsides, you still had the same V8 engine that was used in the M4A3. But since this tank was a couple of ton heavier than the M4, it just didn't quite have the same amount of power and oomph to get it around. When the driver controls the direction of the tank, it applies braking to the differential, which then adjusts the speed of the tracks and makes the tank turn one way or the other. But because you have to have power going through the differential, that means that the tank must be moving forwards or backwards in order to turn. It can't turn on the spot.
What can you tell me about the gun?
Well, the gun is a 90mm rifled cannon M3A1. It fires a variety of ammunition. You have your typical 90mm armor-piercing round. You got a high explosive round. You have smoke, white phosphorus. Together, you have a good general purpose capability against pretty much any target you come across. On the end, you're going to see a muzzle brake. This reduces a bunch of the recoil, and it reduces the shock on the mounting and on the tank. Behind it, we have a bore evacuator, and it brings all the fumes and gases out through the end of the muzzle. So if you look very carefully at a gun which has a bore evacuator on it, after it fires, you'll see the big explosion, and then maybe a second and a half later, you'll see another puff of smoke.
So how does this tank perform in the game?
Well, people seem to have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Pershing. It's a tier 8 medium, and as such, it's not going to be in the main line of battle. And a lot of the hard stats people look at, the penetration of the gun, the damage per minute, it doesn't do as well as a lot of other vehicles. But where Pershing and, in fact, most American vehicles tend to excel are the soft stats, the things that don't automatically get looked at immediately. For example, Pershing has a greater gun depression capability than pretty much any other vehicle in the game. Now, while this doesn't immediately sound like an important point, if you're on anything with sloping terrain, it means that you can expose less of your tank and shoot earlier, so you'll get your shot off first and be a harder target at the same time. American vehicles are also usually fairly nimble. So if you're looking for something that can really run around in the sides and make a nuisance of itself, as opposed to punch through, Pershing is usually something that you might want to consider. Downside again, because it relies so much on the soft stats, you have to be a particular style of player in order to make the most of the vehicle.
We learned a lot about the M-26 and how fun it is to play on the battlefield. I'll see you guys there.